Greetings, one and all, from the Holy Land, from the holy settlement of Elon Moreh, the most beautiful synagogue in Elon Moreh, Od Yosef Chai. We are on the first day of the second month of Adar 5784. This class is always for the sake of heaven, to remove the divine presence from the exile, to improve ourselves. One small step, one big step for mankind. And as always, we thank our sponsors, the greatest channel, the greatest group of volunteers, Mike and his volunteers in southern Israel in the battle against evil. Hats off to you, Mike, and all the great things that you guys are doing, and also to one of the only blogs that are worth reading these days. Check it out, Tomer Devora blog, worthwhile. Okay, this is one of the most exciting classes that I could remember that I've done. I hope that you also will be excited about it. And I have to thank only the boss above for giving me this privy information. And it's an honor and to be able to pass it over to, as we'd close Passover, pun intended, maybe, give it over to you all. Okay, so I hope this will be 3 parts. Usually I try to make up a new name for all the classes. So here we go. What triggered the Israel-Gaza war of this past year? The real trigger. We start out with 80 years of calamity, tragedy in the area of Gaza. We go back from 1942 to 2024. Let's take a overview of the events, the tragic events. Now, keep in mind that on all the points that I bring, we could probably do a class or 2 on each point, but that's not my point, so I'm going to do it short. In 1948, Israel, for a period of time, took control of the Gaza Strip. Unfortunately, Egypt afterwards took control and conquered it from Israel in 1948. Egypt in Gaza became the springboard of attacks on Jewish communities in the south near Gaza. These communities were established between the years 1942 and 1946. They will definitely ring a bell today. Places that I did not really ever hear of, but because of the events of the last 5 months, most of you out there, I hope, are familiar with these places, because they were places that were massacred after Simchat Torah. Okay, so these places were set up in 1942 to 1946, Kibbutz Be'eri, Nirim, Kfar Aza, Re'im, etc. There was a period of 10 years from 1946 to 1956 where there were dozens and dozens of attacks by the Arabs, the Muslims in Gaza, coming into these southern communities. It was called the Fedayun, the guerrilla attacks on Israel. It lasted almost 10 years. hundreds of Jews were murdered during these 10 years in the southern border communities of Gaza, and hundreds were injured. Fast forward 10 years later, November 1st, 1956, Israel conquers Gaza in 3 days. You could clean your ears out. You heard correctly. Right now, today, we are on 5 months. 5 months in Gaza. In 1956, in 3 days, the Jews defeated Gaza. Israel conquered the Gaza Strip. Egypt surrendered the territories to Israel. Check out this amazing document from the IDF. This IDF document was sent to all the soldiers before the 1956 Sinai campaign, Kadesh. Gaza is an integral part of the state of Israel that was torn away from us. I'm going to read that again. Gaza is an integral part of the state of Israel that was torn away from us. We will uproot the gates of Gaza and return peace to the southern Jewish communities, blow after blow. 3 days, 1956. 16 months, fast forward, March 1957. 16 months after conquering Gaza and quiet returning to the southern Jewish settlements, Israel succumbed to international pressure. Let's call the child by its name, America and Russia, and left the Gaza area under pressure from America, our allies, our friends, our best buddies, Yak, and Russia. A UN security force, like, play it again, Sam. We've been there, done that. You know, the UN left a security force to ensure tranquility. However, as time progressed, as always, the situation for the southern Jewish towns returned to scenes of tragedy, calamities, horrors, attacks, and murders. June 6th, 1967, the southern commander of the IDF, Shaika Gavish, suggests to the Minister of Defense that Israel first conquer and attack Gaza. That request was denied by the Security Minister Moshe Dayan. Egypt began the attack against Israel from Gaza. Gaza was the springboard. It took 1.5 days to conquer Gaza. Remember, 1956, 3 days. Times are getting better. You're not growing older, you're growing better. You're getting better. In fact, the southern commander, Shaika, he told the Minister of Defense that he believes that will take 2 days to conquer Gaza. He said, I was wrong. It took 1.5 days. After the Six-Day War, June 1967, Israel, on one hand, keeps the IDF, the military, away from the city of Gaza. However, within the borders of Gaza, set up a civil and army military government administration to run affairs of the city. In the early 1970s, after many attacks against Israel from Gaza, the IDF decided to expand its presence within the city of Gaza and the outlying areas. 1987, the civilian army administration in Gaza begins to crumble thanks to the first Intifada uprising, which began, of course, in the city of Gaza. Hamas begins to become a major player in this region. 500, during this first Intifada, the first uprising, 523 Arabs from Gaza were killed during the first Intifada. 523. In 1994, Israel signs an agreement, accords, called the Oslo Accords. In the Oslo Accords, the title, the headline was called Gaza First, or some called it Gaza and Jericho First. Amazing. Gaza first, of all places. Israel hands over all affairs to the Arabs, to the PLO. Israel retreats from Gaza and from Jericho, 1994. Fast forward, 2005. All Jews are expelled from the Gaza region, from Gush Katif. And then tragedy after tragedy after tragedy. Remember, every detail I gave here, it could be a class within itself. 2008, cast-led operation, lasted 3 weeks. Think about the amount of damage that was done in Israel, the amount of rockets shelled into the land of Israel. People are injured, businesses destroyed. Understand the vast calamities that have happened in this area. 2012, Pillar of Cloud operation. Israel declared, if you could believe this one, it had crippled Hamas's rocket launching ability. We'll try not to laugh at that one. In the year 2014, Protective Edge operation. As I say all of these names, imagine Jews, soldiers being killed, maimed, injured for life, rockets, terror, trauma, businesses. (2021) for 11 straight days, rockets fly into Israel. Hundreds of rockets fly into Israel. What other place in the world would allow such a predicament, such a reality? And last but not least, 2023, 2024, on the holy day of Simchat Torah, or what the Gentiles call October 7th, 1,200 Jews murdered, raped, mutilated, burned, etc. 5 months of war have passed. Tens of thousands of Jews injured, maimed, some for life. 538 Jewish soldiers murdered. "80 years of tragedies, horrors, trauma. Why? The worst attack ever in the history of the state of Israel took place from Gaza. There's something behind. There's something behind this conflict between Israel and Gaza, and it goes back. We will see it goes back thousands of years till we reach the root. There's a fundamental concept in Judaism. The actions of our forefathers are signs for future generations. Maseh Avot Siman Libanim. The actions of our forefathers are a sign for future generations. Most attribute this banner statement to Nachmanides, the Ramban. However, they are really concepts that are brought down by our sages. You could check it out in Bereshit Rabbah 40, chapter 40, paragraph 8, or Tanchuma, the portion of Lech Lecha in Genesis, paragraph 9. We might say that Nachmanides publicized it or iconed this information. I will bring down one example of Nachmanides' concept, what happened in the past, the dealings, the ordeals of the forefathers will once again reincarnate to the children, to the following generations. So, once again, this is not really Nachmanides' original idea. He condenses it, but it can also be found in Bereshit Rabbah, chapter 40, paragraph 8. So, he has 10 copy and paste situations, dittos, where he takes the events that happened to Abraham and Sarah when there was a famine in the land of Israel and they went down to Egypt. And then he copies that and then he pastes it on to the sons of Jacob, that go down to Egypt because there was a famine in the land, and it ends up leading to the exile and eventually to the redemption of the Jewish people from bondage in Egypt. So check this out. It's really amazing stuff. Number one, going down to Egypt. Abraham and Sarah go down to Egypt. Ditto. Jacob and his sons descend to Egypt looking for food. Number two, in the times of Sarah and Abraham, the king's name was Pharaoh. In the time of Joseph and the sons of Jacob, the king's name was Pharaoh. Three, there was a famine in the time of Abraham and Sarah. There was a famine in the time of the sons of Jacob in the land of Israel. Number four, it says black and white, there was a tremendous amount of honor that was given to Sarah by the king and by the Egyptians. So too, the brothers were received, Joseph's brothers were received with tremendous dignity and honor by the Egyptians when they went down to Egypt, and when it was revealed that they were actually the brothers of Joseph. Five, there were various plagues that were placed on Pharaoh because of the fact that he kidnapped Sarah. There were plagues, of course, 10 of them in Egypt during the time of the redemption of from Egypt. 6, Sarah was released against the will of the Egyptians and also of Pharaoh. The Jewish people were released against the will of Pharaoh. Number 7, Abraham and Sarah were given an honor escort out of Egypt. The Jewish people were given an honored escort out of Egypt during the time of the Exodus. 8. Pharaoh gave Abraham and Sarah a tremendous amount of wealth when he set them free. Ditto, the Jewish people, when they were released from Egypt, they were released with tremendous amount of wealth. 9. Sarah and Abraham, after being released, they continued their journeys, visiting the various hotels and places that they had come on their journey to Egypt. They revisited these hostels, hotels. Same too, the Jewish people, for 40 years, they do 42 journeys in the desert. Last but not least, when Sarah and Abraham leave Egypt, first thing that they do is they build an altar. When they come back to the land of Israel, so too the Jewish people, when they leave Egypt, they build a tabernacle in the desert for the 39 years that they sojourned in the desert. So we see a beautiful piece by Nachmanides, understanding this copy and paste. The deeds of our forefathers are signs of what is to come, previews, trailers of what is to come down the pipe. Now first, before we discuss why have the Jewish people suffered tremendously from the southern part of Israel for so many hundreds, thousands of years, more than any other area. So before we delve into this question to try to find the root of this, let us just quote from the amazing book Shem Mishmuel by the Sokochova Rebbe, the commentary on the Torah, Leviticus, pages 139 to 140. Shem Mishmuel writes the following: whenever we speak about the shortcomings, the sins of our forefathers or mothers in the Torah, we must realize that we are dust under their feet. What would not be considered a sin by us, simple folk, because of their tremendous high level, only to them it was considered to be a shortcoming, a transgression, or a sin. And only because of the fact that they are so righteous, for us, it wouldn't even be considered to be something wrong. There's a funny line that people tell. Sometimes people try to be the last ones into the spiritual baths, the mikveh, on Friday before the Sabbath. Why? Because they say that all the righteous people that were in the spiritual bath before them, their sins for us who are the last ones in, they are like mitzvahs, they are like good deeds for us. That's something to that level. So God is extremely, as we know, He is extremely scrupulous and very stringent when it comes to judging the righteous people. So we must always keep that in mind. We are dust under the feet of these tremendous giants, our forefathers, the mothers, etc. We must remind ourselves that. But still, this is Torah, and this is pointed out by our sages for us to learn and be certain that when we learn lessons from the shortcomings of the sages, from our forefathers, This in turn turns into a merit, not only for ourselves, of course, who learn the lesson and change our ways, but also for them. That's the way it should be looked upon. With this concept in mind, we begin our journey of 4,000 years. The actions of our forefathers created the reality of future generations, created the reality, perhaps, today in the war between Israel and Gaza. Strength creates strength. Weakness created weakness. It's a two-sided coin. The actions of our forefathers, if they were positive, if they were strength, if they showed strength, demonstrated strength, they give strength for generations. If they demonstrated a fall, a flaw, it demonstrates a flaw, a shortcoming, a weakness for generations until it is fixed. Background information. I like to call this, many of my classes, I see that many concepts in the world, the big world that we know, were really taken from the Jewish people. Sometimes I talk about different sports concepts. So here, I'm going to say this. Remember Agent 99 on Get Smart? I believe that this was taken from our background information here. Abraham at the age of 99. This was a very big turning point for everything that happened to Abraham. So let's delve into this. Number one, at the age of 99, Abraham was commanded to circumcise. At the age of 99, Ishmael, Abraham's son from Hagar, was at the age of 13. He was commanded also by Abraham to circumcise. At the age of 99, Abraham is promised by God to receive, for Abraham and his descendants to receive the land of Israel. Genesis 17:8. The city of Sodom was destroyed when Abraham was at the age of 99. Angels came to visit, not the Los Angeles Angels, but angels came to visit Abraham at the age of 99 to give over the great news that Sarah, within that year, would have a son, and his name would be Isaac. And sure enough, at the age of 100, Abraham is 100 years old, Isaac is born. Fast forward, Abraham is now 102 years old. Isaac is 2 years old. There is a big party that Abraham and Sarah arrange. The king of the Philistines, Avimelech, was present at this party. Isaac was 2 years old. He had finished, he was weaned from his mother's breastfeeding at the age of 2. So Abraham is 102 and Isaac is 2. At this party, Avimelech, the king of the Philistines, was present. Just in parentheses, there are 2 other opinions that can be found in Breshit Rabbah 53, chapter 53, paragraph 14. Another opinion is this party that was thrown by Abraham and Sarah took place after the 8 days of after Isaac's birth, the circumcision, or it took place 13 years after Isaac's was born at his bar mitzvah. So those are the three opinions. We're going, of course, here, if we look at the verse, Genesis 21:8, it seems pretty much the simple level, the straightforward level, seems very clear that we're talking about the age of 2 years old when he was weaned, and this party took place. Now, afterwards, the event that after the party of Abraham and his wife Sarah, there is a few amazing events that happen. So, number one, there was a covenant that was agreed upon by Abraham and the king of the Philistines, Avimelech. I will read it. 21:22. At the time, Avimelech and Phicol, his general, said to Abraham, God is with you in all that you do. Now swear to me here by God that you will not deal falsely with me, nor with my son, nor with my grandson, 3 generations, the king, his son, and the grandson. According to the kindness that I have done with you, do with me, and with the land in which you have sojourned. And Abraham said, I will swear. Afterwards, Abraham set 7 sheep of flock by themselves. And this will be a testimony. So there is a covenant that is a bond that is being set here between Abraham and Avimelech. It deals with a truce, a peace agreement, something to do with the land of Israel, and 7, the proof of the covenant were 7 sheep. Remember those details. The next event in the timetable of events is the binding of Isaac. Chronological, there we go. So once again, we have a covenant. We have the birth of Isaac. We have a party thrown by Abraham and Sarah. Avimelech, the king of Philistines, takes part of it. We have a covenant by Avimelech, the king of the Philistines, and Abraham, connecting some connection to the land of Israel, a connection to 7 sheep. And then we have, according to this order here, we have the binding of Isaac. Now the Talmud in the Tractate of Sanhedrin, page 89, side B, connects the 2 events. The events of the party for Isaac, thrown by Abraham and Sarah, and the and the binding of Isaac. Actually, according to the words of our sages in Sanhedrin, the trigger leading to the binding of Isaac had something to do with this event, this party that took place given by Abraham and Sarah. The Talmud tells us that there was an accusation against Abraham for a party for your son. You brought the most elaborate food and invited the most elaborate guests. On the other hand, sacrificing for Hashem, what animals have you sacrificed to God? There was some kind of trigger, there was some kind of prosecution that was going on against Abraham, that when it came to throwing a party for human beings, Abraham let it all out. There was no limit to the enormous party that was thrown. However, there was a lacking when it came to the service of God, and therefore God wanted to prove the prosecution wrong and show that Abraham would be willing to even sacrifice his own son. That's how much he loves God. So we see this is the connection that is given by the Talmud. The verse reads, "It came to pass after these events." That is the intro to the binding of Isaac. Vayihi achara dvarim ha'eleh. And of course, that's why the Talmud says, what events led up to the binding of Isaac? And then it points out there was something missing, lacking. There was some kind of blemish on this union between Abraham and Avimelech. Now, folks, there are 4 levels that we learn the Torah. In Hebrew, it's called pardes, a garden. Pshat is the simple, straightforward interpretation. Remez, hints, allusions. Drush, deeper meaning. Sod, secrets of the Torah. These are the 4 levels that we try to learn the Torah. The father figure of the pshat, the straightforward meaning, was not Rashi. Most people mistakenly attribute it to Rashi. Not so. It was actually, not a bad guess, it was actually his grandson, the Rashbam, Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Meir. He lived 1080 to 1160. He was one of the most known and famous Baalei Tosafot. Listen to his commentary on this verse, Genesis 22:1. It came to pass after these events, reminding us the covenant between Abraham and Avimelech is written in Genesis 21, verses 22 to 34. Immediately afterwards, chapter 22, verse 1, immediately after the covenant is the beginning of the binding of Isaac. Even though chronologically there were years that had passed between the events, according to the simple, straightforward order the Torah is given, it, pun intended, it binds them together. The covenant between Abraham and Avimelech and the binding. So, the Rashbam, the father of just give us the simple, straightforward explanation here. He talks about this connection. What in the world is going on here? What is the connection between the covenant between Avimelech and Abraham and the binding of Isaac? Amazing. The Rashbam, he brings down the Torah principle that when the Torah uses the word after, achar, not acharei, when it uses the word achar, it means the event right following the previous one. There's a connection between them. This concept, which connects verses together, the events together, is brought down in Breshit Rabbah 44:5, and also in Rashi in the Tractate of Sota, page 33, side B. Amazingly, the Rashbam explains that the binding of Isaac was a punishment for Abraham, not a test, since he made a covenant with the Philistine king, Avimelech. Once again, the Rashbam is taking two cases which are stacked together in the Torah, and he's connecting the two. What was this covenant about? I go on, quoting the Rashbam. This agreement not to displace, not to conquer the Philistines for 3 generations. Since the area of the Philistines was part of the land of Israel, promised to Abraham and his descendants, and since the Philistines came under the law of the 7 Canaanite nations who must be destroyed or expelled, Abraham and his descendants would have to delay their claim to the land of Israel, would have to delay the settling, the conquering, the inhabiting of the land of Israel. 3 generations. Now, Nachmanides writes in Genesis 10, chapter 10, verse 15, how did God promise Isaac the land of the Philistines? Isaac is in the territory of the Philistines, Genesis 26:3. God promises Isaac all of the land where he is at, the land of the Philistines, southern Israel, Gaza Strip. But aren't the Philistines from the Egyptians, not the Canaanite nations? That is the question of Nachmanides. Nachmanides answers very simply. This area was originally given to the Canaanites, and it was taken from them. Part of it was taken from the Philistines. So it really has the jurisdiction. It really has the flag of the Canaanites, even though there were certain parts that the Philistines took away from the owners, the Canaanites. There are some other authorities that write the same message, that the Philistines were part of the 7 nations not to be spared. Of course, the Rashbam that we just read, he writes it in black and white, that the Philistines come under the jurisdiction of the 7 Canaanite nations. Malbim, on his commentary on the book of Amos, chapter 3, verse 10. Check out Or HaChaim HaKadosh, Numbers, chapter 33, verse 52. Gaza, the, capital letters, the major city of the Philistines. Abraham had capitulated on 2 fronts. Number 1, agreeing to delay Jewish settlement to conquer these territories for 3 generations. 2, allowing the Philistines to remain in our land. And then, amazingly, the Rashbam takes all of this information, these 2 capitulations, delaying the settling, the conquering of the land of Israel, inhabiting the land of Israel. Number 2, allowing the nations to remain. What was the punishment? Remember, we spoke about the seven sheep. The Rashbam brings down the amazing Midrash Shmuel. Genesis, chapter 12. Listen to these amazing words. Listen to this punishment. The ark of God was in the fields of the Philistines for 7 months. Why? Because of the 7 sheep, the covenant between Abraham and Avimelech, 7 months. God says to Abraham, Abraham, you made a covenant. You made a covenant on the land of Israel. I will delay the entrance into the land of Israel for 7 generations, not 3. It was only after Moses, if we count Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Levi, Kahat, Amram, Moses. After 7 generations, only the Jewish people merited to come into the land of Israel. 7 generations because of this covenant. Abraham, you gave over 7 sheep. You made this covenant. The Philistines will kill 7 great righteous Jews. Shimshon, Samson, Chophni, Pinchas, King Saul's 3 kids. Abraham, you made this covenant with Avimelech, and you presented 7 as testimony, 7 sheep. The Philistines will have a hand in destroying 5 tabernacles and the first and second temple. The amazing concluding words of our sages in Yalkut Shimoni. Because of this covenant between Abraham and Avimelech, the king of the Philistines, the southern part of Israel, Gaza. Because of this covenant, there has been no nation that is afflicted, suffering upon the Jewish people more than the Philistines. Amazing. If you're still sitting, you really didn't get it. Listen to it again. With God's help, next week, don't touch that dial. With God's help, we will be back on this amazing journey to understand this conflict between Israel, the Jewish people, and Gaza for the generations, and what triggered it all.